Our state has some incredible problems. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. I'm here to talk about that with you and talk about the trends that have shaped this state and dragged us in one direction or another. We're not really we're not realizing the dream we had way back in the early 2000s or even around 2008 or 9 or 10. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. Welcome to WowBiz Nebraska. We're going to get it on right now. If you're anxious, nervous about the future, worried about money, trying to figure out what your career is and where you're going, maybe trying to rethink about what you're going to do the rest of your life insofar as your occupation is concerned, you may be at home, you may be furloughed, who knows? This show, WowBiz Nebraska, is for you today. Bruce Arndt and I are going to talk about how to deal with your anxiety and if there's any way that can kind of be assuaged, as they say, and you'll be able to kind of move forward in a calmer and more focused way. This is the show for you. Thanks for joining Bruce Arndt and I. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker, and we're pleased to have you. Now, before we jump into Bruce, how are you, sir?
Assuaged?
Assuaged. I didn't make it up.
Did somebody challenge you
it's
to
a
use
wonderful
that word
word. Well, you know,
I love that.
I do actually write down, I have a vocabulary file, and when I see a word that I've never heard before, I write it down. I say, someday, before I die, I'm going to use that word.
Well, I'm going to put that in my list.
And I just did it.
That's a great word.
I just did it.
Okay.
Anyway.
Sorry, I didn't mean
Hey,
that.
listen.
Yeah.
Before we jump into this very important issue about anxiety and dealing with emotions as a professional and what to do and so on, I have to tell you, I just stopped at a local convenience store and checked out the merchandising rack and so on. Now, you know, I used to, years ago, Taco Bell was one of my clients. Right. I worked closely with them. But here we are at the end of the pandemic, and we're being told by thought leaders around the industries to be more collaborative and to think about linkages. Mm-hmm. Who can we associate ourselves with? And how can we take our, respective strengths and do something together?
Right.
That's productive.
A force multiplier.
Exactly. Very good. You're listening to the show. Right. And so here I've got some sunflower seeds, very colorful packaging, as you can see. And the seeds are owned by some company called Biggs. That's the brand name for it's a large package of sunflower seeds. Costs $2.30. Wow. But here's the interesting thing. At the bottom of the sunflower seed package, I'm going to try to hold it up here very, very slowly so everybody can figure out, Taco Bell's brand is prominently displayed all over the sunflower seed package.
That's amazing. Was that your doing?
No, it was not my doing. But it makes a wonderful point, and that is that our companies and our brands are in fact compatible with many other companies that are out there.
You just have to think creatively and figure it out.
Exactly. Yeah. And you start by talking to your core customer, the person that likes to buy your product,
right,
and say, forget our products for a while. What else do you spend your money on?
Yeah.
Right? And somebody said, well, I eat a lot of sunflower seeds. Really?
That's probably exactly how that happened.
Exactly. That's how it does. Yeah. That's how it used to be when I was associated with them. But I just have to emphasize this to you. This is not a fluke. This is not a quirk. This is savvy marketing because it means that your costs, Taco Bell's costs, are cut and they're into a brand new market segment.
Yep.
On the cheap.
Very strategic.
And very strategic. And Biggs is going, hey, let's link our name to this big time brand.
Sure. Oh, no, that's
really something. Yeah, so I would tell our viewers that if you're interested in visiting more about cross-promotion, they should get a hold of Growth Dynamics or Bruce Arndt and talk about it, huh?
Exactly. I think so. I mean, there's got to be a way to make it work, right?
Oh, more potential than we realize.
I think so.
Absolutely. Now, let's return back to this core topic that we were discussing earlier. We opened the show about dealing with anxiety in your professional career, especially if maybe you're on furlough, or you're not working, or you don't know what you're going to be doing in a month.
And I just saw in the New York Times, have you heard of them?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Oh, yeah.
The job recovery, or the economy recovery, is kind of at a stall, kind of at a standstill right now.
I heard that for the third quarter.
That's going to put a lot of people sort of, I shouldn't say on the edge, but it's going to make them feel on edge.
Absolutely.
They're really going to have
very nerve-wracking situation. Very hard to tell where you're going to be and who you're going to be working for.
Well, yeah, you may either be out of a job or you may be thinking you're going to be out of a job.
Correct.
And that's a lot of anxiety right there, on top of the last 7 months.
Right. And people are at their wits' end in some ways already, downsizing. Certain people are worried about being evicted. They can't make rent. Utilities are an issue. This goes on and on and on. Yeah. And people are talking about the vaccine maybe not being resolved until early or spring of 2021. So what do we do? See,
well,
And I think we all know that our internal reality is probably even more important than our external reality.
Very much so.
Yeah. So tell me about this article here.
This other article I was reading is about a industrial psychologist who counsels executives, people who are at the very top of their corporate ladder, who can't talk to anybody else.
Yeah, they're lonely, aren't they?
Well, they can't vent their deepest anxieties to anybody else really in their organization because it might make them look weak. So this guy is actually a safe place, and he talks with them, and but he also has a business understanding. He's got a lot of business acumen along with his being a psychologist and in industrial psychology.
What would be an example of something that they talk about, or what would be an example of how I would, if I were the CEO that was discussed theoretically here, how would I feel better by visiting with this guy, or people like him?
It's like any other counselor. It's a matter of getting it off your chest, for one thing.
Yeah.
But I think he did have some, he was saying he did have some just general kind of pearls of wisdom that he's picked up over the years in talking with his own clients, and also a lot of philosopher wisdom things that he's picked up over the years. Just grains of knowledge and insight. So specifically, I guess I wouldn't know how to answer that, but he had a lot of direction for people that, where they didn't even know where to go. He could give them some sense of direction.
Do you think that people at that level are comfortable hearing that they have weaknesses or flaws that maybe nobody wants to tell them because they're the boss?
It actually says in here that he challenges them to sort of assess where they fit into the failure of maybe they lost their job. Well, how much of that is due to your own failures or whatever? He actually challenges them to sort of own up to their own flaws.
So some accountability.
Yeah, accountability. And but again, he's a safe guy to talk with, and I think they probably earn enough trust with him that they feel like they can open up about their own flaws. Because we all have them. Oh, I've heard of flaws. I don't have any, but I know that people generally don't like to face that.
Yeah, no, especially the CEOs and the presidents of companies don't hear a lot of people telling them, you shouldn't have done that, or that was a bad. But let me ask you this question now. Life coaching and career coaching and relationship coaching and what do you want to call it is become incredibly important.
Yeah, and that's similar to this.
Why do you think so? I mean, would it be kind of the same thing?
Well, a life coach may not have a degree in psychology, but they might have the same types of bits of wisdom, I guess.
And maybe asking the same kinds of provocative questions.
Right.
Yeah, I think the best coaches are the ones that ask the questions and don't even really try to pretend that they're philosophical geniuses or whatever. I mean, they don't necessarily have nuggets of wisdom. Their attitude, I think, seems to be, you know everything already, right? But we have to ask a series of questions to kind of let it come out.
So that you can actually derive the answer yourself.
Right, so that you can own the answer.
Right.
And then instead of saying, well, this kind of smart guy came over and told me all the things I was doing wrong, but I don't know.
If you can own it, it has a lot more power.
Exactly, exactly right. Well, that is a very interesting trend, and I'm guessing, although I don't know any specific examples here in this local market, I'm guessing that this is going on. That
the life coach thing?
Well, and especially the senior people trying to figure out, is there somebody that I can safely talk to? And is there anybody around who can teach me anything, something that I can learn from this process?
I would think now more than ever it's going on,
I learned recently that in a crisis, and we'll call the pandemic, I think that qualifies as a crisis,
I think so.
that there's a tendency to do two things. When you have a problem, you move too fast, because they feel like, oh my God, we got people out there, we got to get everybody set up and get their desks and everything. And so they move really in a very reactive mode, right? But then when an opportunity is brought to them, some innovative thing, something they could do that theoretically open a new office or bring out a different kind of, maybe start a new company line, whatever, you see. And then they go, oh yeah, we can do that, but they move too slow.
Too slow, yeah.
And that's a very interesting pattern. And I'd like to sit in front of the prototypical CEO who's had a tough time, maybe in the hospitality industry or the business travel industry or something, you know, horrible business situations, and reverse those scenarios and say, maybe, what if you would have, you know, slowed down your reaction to the situation, but sped up your, you know, you're owning an opportunity and really moving quickly on allocating new resources.
Well, I think
to it.
You know, it's the fear factor that, you know, enters into it, because there's a lot of risk involved in maybe taking some new steps, and you know, that's scary stuff. You know,
there's no doubt about that.
But you're right. I think people are a lot of times a little too slow to actually make a move and get off the dime because they overthink it. Maybe I don't know.
You know, I just had a fascinating conversation yesterday with a CEO, a large organization in the profession, the engineering industry, and he said what I thought everybody was thinking, but nobody's ever told me this. And he said, you know, initially we reacted defensively. We tried to keep our act together and, you know, deploy some resources and move some people home and do all these things just to try to keep the boat moving forward. He said, but now, he says, I feel a real uneasiness because, you know, January and February and March, they're not that far away, and we really don't have a new strategy. You know, we don't have any new way, and he said, my instincts tell me we've got to somehow reinvent ourselves or do something really fresh. And I just wish that more senior people would say the same thing.
Because you feel like they're sailing into a fog bank.
Exactly. And that's a great way to say it, Bruce. Absolutely. And he admitted that that's how he had felt, and I'm sure that's how many feel, but most people don't kind of want to even admit it. Well, we'll see how things go. You know, and so on. So, well, Bruce Arendt, this has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you for filling us in. This is the emotional dimension of the business world that we talk about frequently here, and so I really appreciate you.
And there's an emotional side that you can't ignore.
Yes, you know, This is not a little deal. And emotional intelligence is part of leadership, and especially these days. I think that's what we're talking about here. So thank you so much for being with us and bringing us that special report, Bruce Arendt. And we are here at WowBiz Nebraska. I'm Lynn Hinderrocker. And by the way, we're going to take a second here and tell you a little bit about how this show got to you with the help of KPAO Community TV here in the Omaha, Nebraska area. But it's all over the internet, all over YouTube and so on. And Bruce, I know you're a little bit aware of Nebraska. We're going to talk about Nebraska. This is all brought to you by Nebraska. Now, if you're any company, if you're a business owner in the state of Nebraska, you can at least apply for membership, all right, to be part of the Nebraska community. Now, you can learn about it on nebraska.com. That's NEWBRASKA.com, right? And you can check it out and find out. You get 3 services that you have to pay for, and then 6 services that you don't pay for that are completely free.
I will have to say, being on the site, having seen it, there is a lot of valuable information just there.
Do you think so?
Oh, yeah. I thought it was really like a treasure trove of just good insight.
Good insight, good content. But one of the main things, and this is what I want to emphasize here during our promotional period, is the importance in our economy of collaboration between businesses. We're going to see a lot more of that, and you see it on Nebraska. In fact, if you become a member of Nebraska, you have to actively participate in some form of collaboration or joint interaction.
Taco Bell and sunflowers.
Exactly, it's a great example, right? And that can be translated into B2B, industrial and manufacturing. That all comes along with it. So collaboration. I'm going to mention here to you very, very quickly a couple examples of collaboration. If some of our viewers are saying, well, what does that really mean? And you're thinking about maybe this Nebraska thing seems interesting to you. Let's talk about rural hospitals in Nebraska. Very interesting, and collaboration and innovations are part of that. I'm going to read this very quickly. Pediatrician Elisha Yagmal co-founded Wichita-based, so it's coming out of Wichita, Kansas, Vigilius. It's a tech platform, I love this, that connects remote clinics, right, with primary and specialty care from bigger facilities, thus eliminating the need for long drives and costly transfers. Now that's very relevant in Cherry County, Nebraska, and all over.
It's a long ways to anywhere.
That's right. The startup serves 28 Kansas hospitals at this point and is expanding into Nebraska, and New Mexico.
Is it a virtual consultation kind
Well,
of
it's a
thing?
tech, yeah, it's a tech platform. I think it has a variety of specific services, but it provides specialty care. So that would probably involve diagnoses and looking into analyzing various blood tests, things like that, and helping people and find quickly deal with some issues that would take them hours or days to get a doctor to really check them out.
Wow, that's really...
So that's pretty cool.
That is very cool.
And I'm going to read one more thing here. And again, we're talking about Nebraska.com and collaboration and joint ventures and what we call a partner ecosystem. This is extremely important, all right? So don't be sitting at home going, we're just going to do our own thing. It'll be fine. We'll get back to normal pretty soon. That's not the attitude you want to have these days. We're turning the corner in a brand new generation of business and marketing. Now, we've all heard of Siemens, right? That's a world-class, huge company out of Munich, Germany. But let me just quickly read this. You'll find this amazing to talk about. Industrial manufacturer Siemens holds more than 15,000 patents in the United States alone, all right? And they are very R&D focused. In fact, they tell all their employees, we want you to give us ideas and come up with new ways to leverage our technology, new things that we should be doing.
Wow.
I love this, right?
Yeah. That's
people that get into the...
You wouldn't expect that from a company that
Well, that's
big,
why
would you?
that's why it's so exceptional, and that's why it's on WowBiz Nebraska, because we're exceptional as well. So we have to do that. But anyway, it has something called, now this is the key. Think about your culture now. Think about the opportunities with your employees. I don't care if you got 3 or 4. Here we go. Siemens Quick Starter Program allows Siemens employees to independently and democratically allocate company money to support the development of colleagues' ideas.
Wow. Wow.
So it's entrepreneurial in a very real way.
They have a real entrepreneurial spirit.
Right, and they got 15,000 patents around the entire world.
That's why.
They have 43,000 employees.
43,000?
43,000 employees.
Wow.
And they're telling them all, come up with ideas, and all of you can kick money in, and so on and so forth.
That's very cool.
Isn't that what it's all about, really?
It should be.
Fantastic.
Wow.
So that's Nebraska.com. Check it out. We want to associate ourselves with that kind of thinking, looking forward, finding commonalities, associations. Cut your costs, double your results. Okay, that's the theme right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hook up with the right people, like Taco Bell and the Biggs operation did at the nearby. Now, all right. So we're back. Did you realize we had even been gone?
I didn't know.
That was a different kind of a moment of consciousness we were having right there. And now we're at a new level. Okay. We're looking down. We're from Framework 2 and back into Framework 1.
Is this an out-of-body experience?
Out of body. Now listen, here's a big deal.
Okay.
You know, trends. Everybody talks about what's really happening, you know, as the world seems to be changing so rapidly. And we have a new generation, Gen Z now. Gen Z thinks about work and career and money differently than Gen Y. Many people haven't even figured out Gen Y.
Yeah.
And here comes Gen Z, the kind of the 18-year-olds, you know. And so the world is changing, technology, et cetera, et cetera. So the question is, how does your company, and even if you're the most boring manufacturer, distributor, B2B,
right.
You don't have to be a flashy consumer marketer.
Something really behind the scenes. Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Whatever.
Because the world is changing, and that means your end user. Not maybe you're a manufacturer, you sell to a wholesaler, right? Wholesaler turns around and sells to a retailer. Retailer sends to the end user. We all know that. Well, but what I'm trying to say here is, even if you're at the beginning of that supply side situation, you got to realize, what is the end user thinking about? How does this 18-year-old kid figure he's going to work his way into this career or this industry or buy this car or whatever?
Yeah.
Huh?
Because that's what matters.
That's what matters.
Yeah.
And then sit around and say, now, gee, here's our brand, here's what we are. We stand for this. Here's our little story, here's our pitch. Don't know if it's good or bad, really, but here's the world changing. It's like standing on a stage, if you're an actor, standing on a stage, and the backdrop with the curtains is slowly moving, right? Yeah. So you start the beginning of a soliloquy or a long poem or whatever, and the background is one thing, but by the time you get to the end of the poem, the background's completely different. And it doesn't seem to actually work with what you're saying. Right. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's exactly how many businesses these days, they're stuck in that mud puddle. right? They're still saying, well, you know, we give good people good service. We just show up at the right time, and people seem to give us a call, and everything's going to be fine, right? And that's not how it is. No.
Because they're not watching the world.
They're not watching the world. Changes. That's right. And they don't want to, they're dishonest, I guess, is the first thing. Sometimes I think they're naive, but sometimes I think they know things are changing, but they don't know who to talk to.
I was just going to say they probably don't know how to change along with it.
Right. So the first thing is what is happening that would be relevant in our ecosystem, not in just our own industry. This is a sub-point here, but in the ecosystem within which our industry works. Mm-hmm. In other words, there are vendors, there are different players and influencers, right? They all come together in the ecosystem. Right. And so we've got to think very broadly. Anyway, so I have a book here, and I think you know, I mentioned this to you a couple of years ago. Back in 1997, I made a decision. Every time I read about a new trend, I was going to distill it, write it down, and stick it on my computer.
How many do you have?
Oh, I have about 300 pages.
300 pages?
300 pages. Usually,
wow.
Each page would hold maybe 3 to 4 paragraph, wow. insertions.
Wow.
Yeah, and because I believe, I'm not trying to impress you here.
No, I'm not.
But I know that's true.
No,
but it changes everything. If you're trying to sell something to this guy here, and he's fine, he's got our vendor, we don't need, not looking for anybody else, right? That's okay. But eventually, sooner or later, there's going to be a change. When the change happens, door open.
Yeah.
Right. So put your brains together. I mean, you're thinking, well, I'll just track change. I'll just start making lists and of various changes that happen in industries and how people are thinking differently and this and that. And then I'll say, well, this would affect that industry, so I want to contact them and say, things are changing in your industry, don't say they aren't.
Right.
And when change happens, you possibly risk losing customers, things could go badly. Hire us, So
most people don't know what to do with trends, though.
That's true. And that's why we're here today.
Okay.
And by the way, this book exemplifies the point that I'm making. This is one of the most incredible books I've ever purchased in my life. World-changing, a user's guide for the 21st century.
Huh.
Former Vice President Al Gore was on this, contributor to this.
Okay.
But many, many people.
Wow.
Hundreds and hundreds of trends.
Is it just full of trends? Is that the
full of trends? This is a distillation, well written, maybe 2 pages at the most, 3 pages for any given trend.
Huh.
Tools for talking. This is one trend right here. And one trend that I want to mention briefly is creating a movement. That's what it says in here. It says the importance of not selling something to somebody, but linking your product or service to a movement that has social implications. Okay?
Has a lot more momentum that way, right?
Well, if you can get it, if you can get it started. Now, it depends. Right. If you jump in, it's already an existing movement, that's one thing. But starting a movement.
Wow.
Okay? For instance, I'll mention to you what I think is a movement. The word conscious, the word consciousness. Mm-hmm. 30 years ago, people said, I don't know what that means. These days, by the way, there are many, many, many people that understand what your consciousness is, okay? Or if I said, now there is a conscious leader, okay? And there's actually a movement for conscious leadership, right?
Is it like mindfulness?
Yes, broader than mindfulness, really. It basically assumes that there is an intuitive and spiritual dimension to the leadership function.
Okay.
And that you have to realize that at the highest level, we are all related. Mm-hmm. It's not like, well, I'm the hierarchy and I command and control and do what I say.
Right.
That's old school. Conscious leadership would basically be much more empathetic and kind of conversational and open and that kind of thing. That's just one tiny example.
That's interesting, though.
But starting we talked about Nebraska during the break. We tried to position that as a movement so that the average business owner who feels ignored, lonely, overwhelmed, a little broke maybe, guilty because he's having to fire an occasional employee, doesn't have the money anymore to pay them.
Right.
That's an average guy. That's an average business person right now. He has nothing. But if he can be part of a group who pledge up front, we will help whoever is here succeed the best we can in any way we can.
We'll collaborate.
We'll collaborate. We'll support them. Well, that's a movement, or it could potentially be a movement.
Right.
Yeah. Now, a movement should have, probably 50 or 1,000 people or something. It's not something that you can necessarily do with 2 or 3 people. But there's a seed. There's always a seed.
Yeah, there has to start somewhere.
Has to start somewhere, the notion of it. But I just want to share this with our visitors right now when you say, what can we do in 2021? How can we really jumpstart things and really give our company a new sense of appeal and magnetic and attraction, so on? I would say start with the theory or the strategy, I guess, of how can we create a movement around our product, or at least what our product symbolizes. Maybe our product symbolizes freedom.
Yeah.
Well, hey, that's the beginning of a movement. See?
Interesting.
Or what I call brand meaning then can lead to a movement. Here's a movement right here. I'm going to wrap up this show right on this, is because all these people that are sitting out here watching this show saying, I don't know what I'm doing in my career. I don't know if I'm going to have a job. I don't know if I'm going to have a paycheck. Here's a movement. Become a freelancer. Be an independent person. No longer count on other people to give you anything. You can do it, especially with other people around you that want you to succeed. Claim your profession, claim your future, stand for something, sell yourself and everything that you believe in. If you don't believe in it, get rid of it, discard it, focus on your inner truth, do the True North chant, go all the way, have a manifesto, be a freelancer. And if you can't sell or you can't promote yourself, find somebody who can do it for you. Right. But own your career and go where it takes you.
So many people have an inner strength or an inner gift that they don't really use.
Right. Because they're afraid,
Right.
and they've been conditioned to do otherwise.
Right.
We're wrapping up here on WowBiz Nebraska. Thank you, Bruce Arendt. Awesome job again today. Thanks for cluing us in how to deal with the anxieties associated with this time in our careers and in our economy and our climate and so on and so forth. This is a fascinating show. You're not going to hear anything like this anywhere else, and we want you to come back and join us. I'm Glenn Hinderrocker. We'll see you next time on WowBiz Nebraska. Thanks.